Lonely Master's 7 female slaves revealed unexpected love, one's life-changing journey to become. Mary sat in her cramped apartment, boxes of forgotten photos spilling onto the floor like her ambitions. The walls, once adorned with awards from a glittering business career, now sighed with the weight of unfulfilled dreams. Memories of high-powered meetings clashed with her current reality, surviving paycheck to paycheck in a dilapidated town where hope seemed buried deep. Love? That word had faded to a whisper, drowned out by bills piled high like tombstones of her past. But inside of her beat a heart still capable of warmth. With a tight chest and trembling hands, she took a deep breath, deciding to put her past behind. A job at a local rehabilitation center beckoned, not far from the old diner where she used to meet clients over coffee that tasted of opportunity. She saw it as a lifeboat in a stormy sea. Little did she know it would transform her more than she could ever imagine. Stepping into the center was like entering a new world. The air was thick with stories, tales of broken families, addiction, and dreams deferred. She met 7 women, each harboring scars from battles fought in darkness. There was Lisa, whose battle against addiction stemmed from a father who walked out when she was just a child. And Sarah, raised in a world where love felt conditional. Their vulnerabilities draped over Mary like a warm blanket, stirring something buried deep inside her, a fierce need to connect, to rebuild. As they shared, Mary listened, wrapped in the raw honesty that echoed through the room. Tears trickled down her cheeks as she learned about Kathy, who had been bullied for her looks, and Michelle, whose husband had betrayed her trust. These weren't just stories of despair. They were battles fought, wounds still tender, yet brimming with hope. In turn, Mary began to share her own feelings of inadequacy and grief over her failed ambitions. They became a makeshift family, supporting one another as each day turned into a lesson of resilience. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. But just as they found a spark of hope, the storm clouds rolled in again. Budget cuts were looming over the center, threatening everything they had rebuilt. Mary could see the fear in their eyes, fear of being abandoned once again, their dreams hanging by a thread. It was a harsh blow for a family that had only just begun to heal. Then, like a beacon of hope, a local veteran named Danny stepped forward. Fresh from service, he understood sacrifice. Inspired by the resilience of Mary and the women, he proposed an awareness campaign. Together, they would share their stories, challenging the world's perception of worth. United in vulnerability, they prepared for battle, not just for survival, but for dignity. With every moment that passed, tension mounted. Could they truly bring light to the shadows that surrounded them? Could they conquer the stigma that had haunted them all? As the day of revelation approached, doubt crept in, simmering beneath their fierce resolve. Each woman had to confront her deepest fears, and Mary, the once high-flying businesswoman, now felt the weight of a new mission on her shoulders. The anticipation in the air was palpable, yet uncertainty gnawed at them. Just when it seemed they might seize their moment of redemption, an unforeseen complication threatened to unravel everything they had fought for. The darkness whispered all around them, but Mary and her surrogate family clung to each other, ready to face whatever came next. Hope flickering dimly but undeniably alive. The day dawned heavy with clouds, mirroring the weight in Mary's heart. Each raindrop seemed to echo her fears. She stood in front of her bathroom mirror, determination flickering in her chest. Tonight was the night they would gather to unveil their stories, to challenge the labels society had slapped on them. She ran her fingers through her hair, steeling herself. But as she fixed her gaze, doubt crept in. What if nobody listened? What if their truth fell on deaf ears? The center had transformed into a small sanctuary, filled with soft lights and chairs arranged in a circle. Kathy paced back and forth, practicing her lines, while Sarah and Lisa sat together, whispering and giggling nervously. In that tight space, a sense of community hummed through the air. It was more than just about revealing their pasts. It was about coming together, lifting each other up. Mary felt the warm embrace of camaraderie mingling with her own anxiety. Would they each find their voice tonight? As the clock ticked closer to showtime, Danny arrived, his presence a mix of calm and encouragement. "Remember," he said, his voice steady, "it's not just about telling your stories. It's about owning who you are now." He flashed a supportive smile, and that strength seeped into Mary. She leaned into the moment, knowing they were all gathered for a singular purpose. They stood together, a tapestry of scars and triumphs. One by one, the women began to share their stories, their once hidden scars transformed into badges of honor. Mary's heart swelled as she listened. Lisa spoke about nights spent craving validation through substances instead of through love. Kathy's voice quivered as she recounted the pain of bullying, yet an underlying strength flickered in her eyes, igniting something beautiful. When it was Mary's turn, she drew in a deep breath, remembering theirs. Shared hardships bathed in resilience. "I used to define myself by my career," she started, her voice trembling but inching into strength. "But that worldly success left me feeling hollow, trapped in a cycle of loneliness." The room absorbed her vulnerability, every pair of eyes fixed on her, mirroring understanding instead of judgment. "I realized that success isn't what I thought it was. It's about connection, love, and growing together." The words tumbled out, echoing her transformation. Cheers erupted when the last story was shared, their safe space swirling with newfound courage. But as their hearts soared, a chilling message pinged on Mary's phone. She glanced at the notification, her heart sinking, a heart sinking. A fierce wave of panic swept through her. The cuts to the rehab center were confirmed. They were real, and the closure could come any day. Her stomach twisted. Was this the end before they had even begun? The elation in the room dimmed as the cloud of uncertainty loomed again. Mary's heart raced. What would happen to these women, her family, if they lost their refuge? Steeling herself against the tide of despair, she turned to the others. Together, amidst the uncertainty, they huddled closer, clinging to the flickering flame of hope. In that charged moment, a plan sparked to life, bold and unyielding. What if they fought back? What if their stories could resonate beyond this room, change perceptions, and ignite action? The adrenaline soared with every heartbeat. United, they could challenge the darkness threatening to swallow their refuge whole. As they held each other's hands, a rush of determination overcame them. What were they willing to sacrifice for their hope? The weight of their shared journey hung heavy, yet the thrill of possibility crackled in the air. They would rise or fall together. Mary felt the surge of motivation settle in her core. But would it be enough? Would they truly find the strength to rally their community and save their sanctuary? A wave of uncertainty crashed over her again. The path ahead loomed large, fraught with obstacles. Yet, after everything they had endured, they were ready to stand united. The moment of truth was coming. How far were they willing to go to fight for not just themselves, but for the chance to heal and reclaim their future? The air buzzed with excitement and a hint of anxiety as Mary led the group toward a new purpose. They gathered around a small table adorned with candles, each flickering flame casting shadows that danced against the walls. It wasn't just any meeting. It was the birth of a movement, an idea that could turn their individual stories into something greater. "Let's write letters," she proposed, her voice steady. "Letters to the community, to local leaders, newspapers, anyone who will listen." The eyes of her friends glimmered with a mix of hope and disbelief. It was risky, yet nestled within that risk was the essence of who they had become. Kathy was the first to speak.
What if they ignore us? What if it just falls flat? Then we try again, Mary replied, her heart racing. We cannot stay silent just because we fear rejection. Our stories matter. The resolve in her voice rippled through the group. Everyone nodded slowly, their apprehension softening into determination. They spent hours crafting their letters, pouring their truth onto the pages. Each story intertwined with those of the others, creating a fabric of shared pain and resilience. Sarah's passionate call echoed through the room. "This space saved us. We have to make sure it doesn't disappear." Lisa, usually shy, wrote about her journey from addiction to healing. The vulnerability ignited something fiercer inside her. As they shared what they had written, the circle grew tighter. Each letter brought more stories, more emotion, and less fear. Mary could feel the strength rising within them, a collective voice that was too powerful to be ignored. The night wore on, transformed by their words and shared laughter. When they finally shared a group hug, it felt like a shield against the worries that had threatened to consume them earlier. But as the world outside was drenched in dark clouds and rain, an undeniable hint of uncertainty still hung thick in the air. The letters would need to be sent the next day. There was no turning back. "Do we really believe we can make a difference?" Kathy whispered as they broke apart. "Believe?" Mary said, her heart pounding. "I know we can, and it starts with us." The next morning they sat at the diner, the scent of coffee lingering sweetly, warmth enveloping them like a blanket. Mary looked around the table, feeling the strength of every woman beside her. But doubt bubbled beneath the excitement, drumming against her stomach. What if no one cared? Just as she was about to voice her fears, her phone buzzed. A message from Danny lit up the screen. A local journalist had expressed interest in their letters and wanted to talk. Hope surged through her. Maybe there was a chance after all. "Guess what?" Mary exclaimed, drawing the attention of her friends. The diner seemed to shrink in their moment of surprise, compressing excitement and fear. "They want to interview us!" Gasps erupted. But as what they had to do settled in, the reality loomed larger than ever. This was their chance to share their truth with the world, to give their stories wings. But the thought of exposure was daunting. What if they faltered? "Are we ready for this?" Sarah asked, biting her lip. Mary's heart raced. This was bigger than they had anticipated, yet perhaps it was exactly what they needed. "We can't turn back now," she said, squeezing her hands into fists on the table. The women nodded, courage blending with fear. They had started a journey within that was now spilling outward. But as they prepared to step into the light, another dark cloud loomed on the horizon, the threat of their center closing. Lingered heavily, a shadow stalking their newfound resolve. Would their voices resonate or dissolve into silence? Could they really change the course of their sanctuary's fate? The answers lay just ahead, teetering on the edge of hope and uncertainty. What if this conversation could change everything? Mary's breath hitched. The moment of truth was drawing near. The real fight,
the one for their future and healing, was only just beginning. The diner buzzed with the morning rush, but to Mary it felt like a cocoon. The chatter faded into the background, and her insides quaked with anticipation. She could sense the gravity of the moment. This was an invitation to share their stories, their pain, their growth. And yet, vulnerability loomed over her like storm clouds. The group left the diner, each woman buoyed by the thrill of possibility, but Mary could see flickers of anxiety in their eyes. They walked toward the community center, the familiar route now feeling surreal. Would they be met with understanding or judgment? As they entered the center, the scent of warm wood mingled with echoes of laughter and support that had once filled this space. Today, though, an air of foreboding seemed to tangle with the light. "What happens if they don't understand?" Sarah whispered. "They have to," Mary replied, more to reassure herself than her friend. "It's our truth, and it matters." They gathered in a small meeting room, the walls adorned with photos of patrons who had found solace there. Mary set down her bag and took a deep breath. "This is it," she said, looking around at her friends. "This is where we start." With shaky hands, each of them reached for their letters. As they read aloud, the room filled with emotion. Lisa shared her story with raw honesty, her words thick with memories of struggle. Kathy choked back tears, recounting the dark days of feeling lost. Mary felt herself swell with pride and empathy. This wasn't just about fighting for the center anymore. It was about honoring their journeys. Their collective strength was palpable. But the weight of their stories sat heavy on her heart. They finished, the silence palpable, each woman caught in thought. "That's our pain," Mary finally said, her voice steady. "But it's also our strength." Their voices echoed, creating ripples of hope that felt contagious. "What if," Kathy began hesitantly, "what if we shared something even more personal, like what we need from our community?" Mary's mind raced. It was an idea that could reach deeper into the hearts of their neighbors. What if we tell them how they can help, how they can make this space thrive? The room buzzed with newfound energy as they brainstormed. Each suggestion was more vibrant than the last, and laughter began breaking the tension. It felt good to imagine a future where their center was not just saved, but celebrated. Yet, as they wrapped up, Mary couldn't shake her earlier anxiety. There was still that nagging fear of rejection. "What if our stories aren't enough?" she blurted out. "Then we'll share more," Sarah said, her chin up. "We'll keep pushing until they hear us." Their determination was a spark igniting something fierce within Mary. It was the heart of their fight, and together they were unstoppable. Just then, Mary's phone buzzed again. It was Danny, and a message popped up. A local news station wanted to air their story live. Trepidation washed over her, but so did excitement. This was their chance to reach more people than they had ever imagined. She looked at her friends, their eyes wide with a mix of fear and wonder. "It's happening," she said, though her voice trembled. "Then let's do it together," Lisa breathed out. And for a moment, they all clutched hands, the reality of their shared journey coursing through them like electricity. And as they prepared to step into the unknown, a question lingered in the air. Would the world be ready for their truth? Would their voices be heard? The answers lay just beyond the horizon, waiting to be discovered. Mary could hardly sleep that night. Thoughts raced through her mind like a roller coaster. The news segment weighed on her, a heavy ball of nerves sitting in her stomach. What if they messed it up? What if people laughed? Yet the exhilaration of possibility kept her awake like a flickering flame. She wondered what would happen tomorrow. Sharing their stories could open doors, not just for them, but for everyone who had ever felt alone or unheard. Morning came too quickly. Sunlight streamed through her window, chasing away the shadows of the night. She quickly slipped into her favorite jeans and a long sweater, hoping that comfort would grant her a sense of calm. As she headed to the community center, she replayed her lines in her head, tightening them into a small script. Each word needed to carry the weight of her story, her truth. When she arrived, the others were already waiting. Lisa hugged her tightly. "You ready for this, Mary?" she asked, her voice a soft melody that brought a surge of support. "Ready as I'll ever be," Mary replied, adorned with forced confidence. They exchanged glances filled with understanding at the unspoken fears that bound them. "Hey, I think we should open with something light, break the ice a little," Kathy suggested, her eyes holding a spark of determination. "Maybe tell a funny story from the past." The room buzzed with chatter as they mutually agreed. They shared jokes, laughter ringing off the walls, and for a moment it felt as if the weight of everything melted away. But just as quickly, the previous tension returned when they heard the low hum of the equipment being set up for the broadcast. Mary's stomach knotted again, her heart racing. A camera crew bustled around, adjusting things, making sure all was in place. It was almost surreal. Would they really be broadcasting their stories to the world? Danny, standing off to the side, gave Mary an encouraging smile. He had become a pillar of support through this entire process, his belief in their vision unwavering. He strode over, his presence steadying. "Let them see you. Let them feel your truth," he said, his voice a soothing balm. She nodded, absorbing his words like an anchor in a storm. One by one, they took turns standing at the front of the room. As Mary approached the camera, the chatter in the room faded into the background, replaced by the pulse of her heart echoing loudly in her ears. The red light of the camera blinked to life, and she took a deep breath, realizing she had a choice to make. The stories came pouring out. They were more than just snippets of pain. They were threads of resilience woven together. Mary found her voice, shared her fears and dreams, wrapped around the larger picture of their community. Just then, something unexpected happened. An audience member chimed in, "How do you want us to help?" It was a simple question, yet it struck a chord deep within Mary. She realized that this was more than just them pouring out their stories. It was a call to action. And for the first time, she saw possibility glimmering in the eyes of the community gathered around them, curiosity and empathy spilling over. When they finished, the room erupted into applause. It filled the air like almost tangible magic. Mary felt tears prick at her eyes. They had been heard. She stood alongside her friends, a vibrant tableau of strength forged from adversity, and together they grinned wide. What Mary didn't expect was that this was only the beginning. As they walked off set, a reporter approached them, eager to dive deeper. "Can we set up another meeting? The audience wants to know more about your stories," she said, her voice buzzing with energy. The pressure and possibility ignited all over again in Mary's chest. Their truth was captivating. It was the start of something unimaginable. "Absolutely," Mary replied, feeling a rush of warmth surging through her. But even as hope fluttered within, she couldn't shake the question that lingered. What next steps would they take on this new path? Would the responses from the community go deeper than they imagined? The truth was just unfolding, and Mary realized that the journey ahead would require as much courage as what had already passed. How much further could their voices extend, and who would they inspire next? Mary stood in the soft afternoon light, the warmth still lingering from the applause that had just faded. The room buzzed with excitement. Her heart raced, not just from the thrill of having shared her story, but from the new path that lay ahead. It felt like standing on the edge of an open door, the world outside inviting her to step through. Did you see their faces out there? Kathy exclaimed, her energy infectious. They were really listening. Mary turned, finding everyone animated, their voices overlapping in a joyful chatter. The weight of their fears had been lifted, replaced by enthusiasm and hope. They were forging a bond that felt like family, united by their truths. "I can't believe this is happening," Lisa said, her eyes shining with tears of joy. "We can actually make a difference." Mary wanted to cling to that feeling forever. But as they basked in the moment, the reality of their next steps began to press down, just as heavy as her nerves had been before. Would their audience grow? Did they have the energy and courage to constantly share their stories? "Hey, let's grab some coffee," Danny suggested, breaking through her swirling thoughts. "We need to plan our next steps." The group moved to a nearby cafe, the scent of freshly brewed coffee filling the air. Conversations flowed easily as they all voiced their hopes and fears over mugs of steaming drinks. Mary felt a surge of gratitude for these friends who had become her lifeline. "I think we need to create a space, a support group," Kathy proposed thoughtfully, "where other people can come and share their stories too." "But what if it gets too big?" Lisa questioned, concern dancing in her eyes. "That's not a bad thing," Danny replied, leaning forward. "The more voices we include, the greater the change we can effect. We can inspire people, help them find their strength." Mary nodded, energizing herself with his words. Each idea tossed around the table felt like a building block for something greater. They could extend the kindness they had felt that day to those who still sat in silence. The conversation shifted. They debated how to spread their message, ways to reach the most people. Suddenly, Mary felt an undeniable excitement. "What if we held open sessions at the community center?" she said. "It could be a safe space, encouraging storytelling and listening." Everyone seemed to light up at the idea. They were brainstorming logistics, thinking of promotional ideas, when a voice broke through the noise. A woman at the next table leaned over, her eyes curious. "Excuse me, but I couldn't help but overhear your conversation. It sounds amazing. Do you really think people would open up like that?" Mary shifted to face her, searching for the right words. "I believe they would. Everyone has a story worth hearing, worth feeling." The woman smiled, her gaze penetrating. "You've just made me think about my own story. If you need anyone to share, I'd be willing." Mary's heart soared. This was the ripple effect they had been hoping for, the spark igniting more voices. They exchanged contacts before the woman returned to her table, her presence leaving a trace of inspiration behind. Mary felt an electric thrill run through her as she realized that each new person could help expand this blossoming community. As they packed up to leave, the conversation intensified again. Ideas spread, each one more profound than the last. They left the cafe buzzing, determination hanging in the air around them like twinkling stars piercing the night. But an underlying question lingered in Mary's mind. How would they keep the momentum going? They needed a plan, something tangible to anchor their visions. What challenges lay ahead as they opened their arms to so many stories, those waiting to be heard? The thought chased her as they stepped outside. The journey had only just begun, and Mary felt both excited and terrified as she glanced at her friends, hearts knit together with an invisible thread. Would they have the strength to keep pushing forward, to embrace what was to come? The sidewalk seemed to stretch before them, full of possibilities waiting to be uncovered. Mary took a deep breath as she stepped onto the sunlit sidewalk. The world felt alive around her, the sounds of laughter and chatter mixing with the rustling leaves in the trees. Each sound seemed to amplify her heart's steady rhythm, filled with hope and urgency. "Okay, so what's our first move?" Danny asked, his voice cutting through her thoughts. She looked over at him, his face bright and eager. "We start with the community center. We need to book a room and set a date," she replied. The idea ignited a fire inside her. Once we have that, we can start reaching out to people. Let's make a flyer, Kathy suggested, pulling out a notebook and rummaging for a pen. We'll hit the local coffee shops and libraries, get the word out everywhere. Oh, and social media, Lisa chimed in. We can create a page, share our stories, our mission. It'll be free advertising. As ideas bounced around like kids at a playground, Mary felt the thrill of each suggestion. This was real. This was happening. Each moment felt like pulling back a curtain, revealing a vibrant world of connection and change. Yet the thought of carrying it all felt heavy at times. How would they manage it all? Guys, Mary said, her voice steadying even as she felt the weight of her worries. This is huge. It's not just about us. We're pulling in everyone who wants to share, who's been silent for far too long. We need to think about how we can support those stories. Danny nodded, his face serious now. You're right. We need to have guidelines, maybe even a structure to help them share in a way that feels safe. Maybe we can set themes for each session, Kathy suggested. Like one week we tackle family stories, the next overcoming personal battles. Mary smiled, her heart swelling with appreciation for her friends. They were pulling in the same direction, each idea fitting together like pieces of a puzzle. I love that. It makes it feel less overwhelming. Suddenly, a vibration in her pocket interrupted the moment. It was a message from the woman they'd met in the cafe. Hi, Mary. I've been thinking about our conversation. I'd love to help out. You're holding a session? Just let me know. Mary's breath caught in her throat. The spark was catching fire. They were building something bigger than themselves. I think I'm going to reach out to her, Mary said, her voice filled with hope. She could be the first to share on our opening night. Absolutely, Lisa encouraged. That's how we get this rolling, one voice at a time. They continued planning, excitement pulsating through their gestures and voices. Each step they mapped out brought them closer to creating a community, a safe space where people could finally be seen and heard. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows behind them, Mary felt infused with strength. It was invigorating to push into the unknown, knowing they had each other, and an entire community waiting to connect. But just as they finished laying out their next steps, a sharp pang of anxiety crept into the back of Mary's mind. How difficult would it become to maintain the delicate balance of safety and openness? What if their efforts to inspire others led to unexpected challenges? And what if they failed to make a real impact? The haunting question lingered in the air as they walked back to their cars. Could they handle the weight of others' stories? As she glanced at her friends, determined yet fragile aspirations reflected in their eyes, Mary couldn't shake the feeling that the most profound lessons were still ahead. What turned mere conversations into true connections? And what stories would emerge that could change their lives forever? The journey was unfolding, and the shadows of doubt danced at the edges. Would they be ready for the journey to transform not only others, but also themselves? The community center stood tall and welcoming against the twilight sky. Mary and her friends arrived early, the scent of freshly cut grass filling the air around them. They had agreed to meet for their first planning session outside the walls that would soon host so many voices. "What do you think about this place?" Kathy asked, surveying the wide-open space. Enormous windows streamed sunlight into the main hall. It felt warm, safe, the perfect setting for their mission. "It feels right," Mary said, her gaze sweeping over the wood floors that beckoned for footsteps, laughter, and vulnerability. "Look at all that light. We want people to feel the warmth when they come here." Danny, with his knack for logistics, approached the front desk. "I'll ask about availability and rates for our first meeting." While he walked off, Mary caught Lisa's eye. "There's so much pressure. I want to get everything right." Hey, Lisa said softly, placing a reassuring hand on Mary's shoulder. No one is expecting perfection. We just need to start. The rest will fall into place, I promise. Just as Mary was about to respond, her phone buzzed again. She pulled it out, her heart racing as she recognized another message from the woman from the cafe.
Mary, I think we should also consider a crafting night. It could help the storytellers feel more at ease. Mary's heart skipped, ideas sparking like kindling lift in her spirits. That's brilliant! We need more activities like that. Could we invite people to create something that represents their story? It would loosen things up. Absolutely, Kathy chimed in. Art has a way of breaking down walls we didn't even realize were there. As they brainstormed, a feeling of unity wrapped around them like a hug. The realization that they were paving a way for others became their common thread, the weight of responsibility somehow feeling lighter in this moment. Yet, as laughter spilled out between proposals, Mary's gaze drifted to the ground, an unsettling pulse of doubt creeping back in. It took strength to open the door for others' stories, and with that, the potential for heartbreak loomed. What about people who might share too deeply? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. What if their wounds aren't healed enough? Kathy's expression turned serious. We'll make sure everyone understands the goal. It's a space for support, not judgment. And we'll have resources available for anyone who might need it afterward. Mary nodded, but a knot formed in her stomach. They had the best intentions, but fragility hung in the air, wrapping around their dreams like a vine. Could they truly create a sanctuary for healing? With the decision made, they finalized the details and locked in a date for their opening rite. As dusk settled into the sky, they looked around the empty hall that would soon host a multitude of stories, their faces lit with hope and anticipation. Okay, everyone, this is it, Mary said, excitement getting the better of her doubts. We're ready to launch. Just then, as they moved toward the exit, Danny looked down at his phone, frowning. Guys, I think we might want to reconsider our plan. I just saw a post that another group is starting a similar project at the same time. The quick shift in mood felt like ice water splashed over their enthusiasm. The unexpected challenge began to germinate doubt. Was their spark about to be snuffed out before it even ignited? Standing on the threshold of possibility, Mary's heart raced. If they had to compete, how could they maintain their goal of inclusivity? Would they falter in their commitment when faced with this challenge? The night air was cool against her skin as they walked back to their cars, questions swirling. Would they rise to meet the unexpected? And would their efforts still matter, even if the world felt crowded with voices? Mary paced slowly beside her car, her mind racing through the implications of Danny's news. The lively discussions, the laughter, the visions of a warm community space all felt fragile now, teetering on the brink of uncertainty. Did you guys see the post? Danny's eyebrows furrowed, a reflection of the tension around them. It feels like fate is against us. Kathy sighed deeply. We can't let this shake our resolve. Maybe there's room for both groups. There always is, right? Mary shook her head. I don't know. What if there's only enough space for one? We've put so much time into this already. As they all stood by their cars, there was a shared silence, heavy and thought-filled. Each of them had hopes, dreams, and an unyielding desire to make a difference. Yet how could they compete? Lisa stepped forward, a flicker of determination igniting in her eyes. We can't control what others do. We have to trust that our intent makes us unique. Our focus is on connection and healing. No one can take that away from us. Yeah, remember why we started this in the first place, Kathy echoed, emboldened by Lisa's words. It's about giving a voice to those who feel unheard. We can't let fear dictate our mission. Mary felt the rush of their passion, yet doubt still coiled tightly in her chest. But what if we fall short?
What if someone else offers something better? A comforting sound broke through the tension. It was the rustle of leaves in the night breeze, gentle and persistent. It reminded Mary of the strength found in nature. Danny, sensing Mary's lingering hesitation, pulled her aside gently. You know, competition doesn't erase our purpose. It's an opportunity to shine brighter. Why don't we try to find our unique angle? What makes our group special? With each word, Mary felt the icy grip of despair loosening, if only a bit. You mean to pivot? To innovate our plans? Exactly, he urged, the warmth of hope making his voice rise. We can still focus on crafting circles, but open it up to more storytelling sessions that highlight our differences. Blend art with narrative. Mary's heart quickened at the thought. What if we themed nights around different cultures or experiences? It could encourage a deeper understanding between everyone who comes in. Lisa jumped in, and we could invite local artists to collaborate. The community will love engaging directly with their stories through art. As ideas bounced among them, Mary could feel a shift. A flame began building back from their collective energy, awakening that vision they had nurtured, something that could withstand the challenges of the outside world. With renewed vigor, they soon exchanged more thoughts, casting aside doubts like fallen leaves. Each suggestion shaped their project with fresh colors and broader aspirations. When the last idea settled, laughter blossomed again, melting the tension like morning dew. Mary looked at her friends, their faces glowing with inspiration. Still, a nagging feeling tugged at her mind. They had reignited their passion, but a question lingered. Would others see the beauty in their plan? How would they respond to the competition? As they prepared to leave, Mary looked back at the building, now a beacon of potential. Would their dreams flourish amidst this unexpected twist? Together, they stepped into the night, unaware that fate had yet another surprise waiting just around the corner. The day had arrived, and the community center buzzed with a blend of nervous energy and excitement. Mary stood at the entrance, her heart racing as she watched people trickle in, smiles and curious expressions lighting up their faces. This was it, the moment they had all worked so hard for. As the room filled, the air hummed with anticipation. It felt as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Mary caught sight of Kathy, Lisa, and Danny, all fervently engaging with newcomers, making them feel welcome. A wave of gratitude surged through her. They had faced doubts together, but here they were, ready to lift others up. "Welcome, everyone," Mary finally said, her voice confident. "Today marks the beginning of something special." The crowd shifted, eyes fixed on her, and she felt a rush of warmth. "We're here to share our stories, to grow together. This space is for all of us." Cheers erupted and applause erupted in response. Mary's heart swelled as she glanced around at the faces, some filled with apprehension, some eager, and some filled with profound understanding. She knew in that moment they were creating a tapestry woven from vulnerability and connection. Kathy took the microphone next. "Before we dive in, I want to remind everyone that this is a safe space. We honor each other's stories, regardless of how fragmented or whole they may feel. Here, we listen, we support, and we rise together." With every word spoken, Mary could feel the energy in the room shift. Stories began unfolding like petals blooming in spring, each narrative bringing new life to the gathering. Each testimony was stark and raw, yet ran parallel to a shared sense of hope. As they settled into expressing themselves, Mary felt her anxiety dissolve into the fabric of their dialogue. Lisa spoke about her journey of recovery from addiction, drawing tears and laughter alike. Kathy shared her story of resilience in the face of bullying, while Sarah opened up about her lifelong search for acceptance. It was a symphony of truths that danced above their challenges. Then it was Mary's turn. She took a deep breath, the words forming slowly in her mind. I was lost, feeling hollow and unworthy. I thought success meant titles and money, but in reality, it's about connection and love. The room absorbed her words, her vulnerability met with nods of empathy. I found my family here with each of you, and I believe that together we can help others find their way too. Thunderous applause filled the space, and in that moment, Mary knew they had all started to heal. The atmosphere buzzed with newfound purpose. They were no longer just a group of individuals. They were a community united by shared struggles and compassion. Just as the open sharing began to wind down, an unexpected voice rang out. The woman they had spoken with in the cafe, Marissa, stood up. I want to share. Something, she announced boldly. The group fell silent as she approached. I've always felt like my pain was too heavy to talk about, but hearing all of you made me realize that my story can bring hope. So here goes. As Marissa shared her story, it was evident that the ripples of courage were spreading far and wide. Her authenticity struck chords of both pain and strength, igniting the spirit of togetherness even further. It became clear that everyone had something unique to share. The laughter mixed with tears flowed seamlessly as a sense of trust blossomed. Mary looked around, realizing this was the magic they had envisioned from the start. By the end of the gathering, something profound had shifted. It wasn't just a single story, it was a chorus, a declaration that they were stronger together. Their combined voices could pierce through the noise of doubt and fear. Plans were made for the next gathering, scheduled right away. Workshops, art nights, and story-sharing sessions were set to unfold. As people began to leave, Mary felt a hand on her shoulder. It was Danny. You did it. You all did it. This was incredible. Just imagine how many lives will change because of this. Mary smiled, a radiant sparkle dancing in her eyes. We're just getting started. As she looked around the bustling room that had transformed from an empty space into a thriving haven, hope surged within her. They had taken the first step, a leap of faith into the expansive unknown. Together, they were bound for something extraordinary. The sun dipped low, painting the world outside in strokes of gold and crimson. Mary knew the sunset heralded the end of one day, but also the promise of another, filled with potential and connection. The journey ahead would be filled with stories yet to be told, paths waiting to be walked together. And at that moment, she understood. They would face whatever came next, unified and unrelenting, ready to shine their light in a world that desperately needed it. This was only the beginning. So now you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Hit that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep the magic alive. Share how this ending made you feel in the comments below. It's important for us to hear from you. And don't wait, not even one more second, to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this soul-stirring transformation. Your support fuels this community. Let's keep spreading hope together.